As you know, there's been a move in Congress to impeach some Biden officials. I mean, there's even been moves on Biden himself. But one that we believe is most relevant and most realistic is the potential impeachment of Secretary Mayorkas at the Homeland Security Committee. And this idea that as the Secretary of Homeland Security, he has failed to implement his job, which is to secure the border, protect Americans, but also he gets up in front of Congress and says, there's no problem at the border. There's nothing to see here. There's no major numbers. So all of that we'll lay out through the show. ACLJ Action at acljaction.org is supporting these House Republicans who are putting these potential articles together. They're in the investigative stage now. Chip Roy, congressman from Texas, who's very vocal in his support of this. You can understand why. He lives and represents a border state. He's going to be joining us to talk about how it's working through the House of Representatives, so how likely they can get it out of the House into a much more hostile Senate. But sometimes, Dad, just being able to have the trial can make a huge impact.
Well, also, Secretary Mayorkas, we got to be clear, does not have a lot of friends in the United States Senate either. There's been serious concern about his administration of our border security. There have been other concerns within the Department of Homeland Security, not limited just to the border wall. But when you look at the situation, I think in the House of Representatives, this will pass. He will be impeached. Now, in the Senate, the trial would be a whole different ballgame. But we've seen this happen before. And like I said, here's a guy that does not have a lot of support in the Senate. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, and I think it's also fair to say is that he doesn't have a lot of support from these state law enforcement officials, not support from his own Customs and Border Patrol, immigration's ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. All of those groups have been very vocal in their opposition to how this administration and this agency led by Secretary Mayorkas has handled these surges at the border that go up and down. You remember sometimes the news gets heavy and hot on it.
Right.
Sometimes they break away. It hasn't changed, though. I saw images yesterday out of Arizona where there was a part of the wall that I don't know who did it, but they lifted it up. And thousands of people just started walking through into the United States. They're selling
portions of the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, as scrap metal. And then you have the situation. Look, he is required by law to enforce the federal immigration statutes. That includes the phrase operational control of the U.S. border. Also includes detention and the removal of illegal aliens from the country. Now, there are 85,000 missing, are these juveniles, I guess? Kids that have crossed the border with or without parents or maybe through coyotes. They are missing. And then you talk about misleading the public. In April of 2022, Mayorkas claimed that Homeland Security had operational control of the southern border. We know that wasn't. The fact at all. Mayorkas has further stated the border is secure and not open. He makes those statements while thousands are crossing. So, look, I think his tenure has been marked with controversy. The controversy is he's not qualified to do this, and he's doing a very poor job.
All right, welcome back to Sekulow. Just another incident where Secretary Mayorkas goes before Congress. Earlier this year at a House Homeland Security Committee hearing, Mayorkas was asked about wristbands that cartels have made migrants wear as a way of tracking them like cargo as they're shipped across the U.S.-Mexico border. So you see, these people are, this is human trafficking, by the way. It might not be sex trafficking all the time, but it is human trafficking so that they can track them when they cross the border. And when he was asked about it, Mayorkas said he was unaware. And that's when Congressman Mark Green of Tennessee said, I was stunned when Secretary Mayorkas confessed to the Senate that he didn't even know the cartels were using these wristbands in smuggling operations. And of course, this just elevates the level of the human trafficking even after those immigrants have crossed the border.
Yeah, talking about these wristbands, we actually have a bite on this. Let's go ahead and play it.
What are these wristbands?
I don't know what they are.
You don't know what they are. Mr. Secretary, you have just testified to the American people you're incompetent at your job, because I've been to the southern border, and if you go to the southern border, along the southern border, you see thousands of these wristbands because the illegal immigrants wear them. The drug cartels, every color corresponds to how many thousands of dollars they owe the cartels. You have turned these cartels into multi-billion-dollar criminal organizations, and these are modern-day leg irons because these are children being sold into sex slavery, and you don't even know what they are. That is astonishing.
He should be impeached just for that. So there is a technique that the cartels use when bringing kids, mostly, into the United States, where these color-coded wristbands that show you owe $3,000, $4,800, and you sell yourself, and it's usually into sex trade to pay back the cartels. And they hold it over your family's head back in Mexico or wherever the country of origin is. Here's the problem. The Secretary of Homeland Security didn't even know what they represent. And this is running a plague on the American people.
And you mentioned it. I mean, the fact that 85,000 migrant children have gone lost. They are now lost over just the past 2 years. Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee and Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri, good friends of ours, reported this news and said that the services have been unable to contact thousands of unaccompanied minors who were placed with sponsors. And we know those sponsors can be no good. Some of those people are good faith actors, but a lot of these sponsors put these kids right into the sex trafficking and human trafficking world that they can't contact. I mean, the United States government has lost 85,000 kids. That's 85,000
Think about
daughters and sons that have been lost to criminal activity.
Yeah, and that criminal activity is mostly sex trafficking or drugs.
Especially when we're talking about kids.
So here's the situation. I think this is an opportunity for the United States Congress to actually take some action. And I don't think you're going to see an impeachment of Joe Biden. Realistically, we're going to be letting Jordan in 3 months. We're less than a year away from election. Could they do it? They could. But this one, he doesn't have a lot of fans in the United States Senate, even among the Democrats. Nobody thinks Mayorkas is doing a good job or a credible job. He doesn't even know the facts on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big debate right now, we'll talk about with Chip Roy in the second half hour of the broadcast, is that I think the support's there in the House. What they're trying to weigh is it going to be politically, is this going to help the issue, or is it going to damage because people sometimes react negatively to impeachment? They actually sometimes backfire.
We're giving you an analysis that you're not really going to get anyplace else because we've done litigation on the border issues, and these are serious. The thing that has me most concerned is when you have a Homeland Security Secretary that doesn't understand what these cartels are doing. It's what Senator Cruz said. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And it's not getting less impactful. It's getting more impactful. And what they're doing is getting more sophisticated, not less sophisticated. And then we're selling. I mean, this is what's outrageous. We're selling parts of the fence, the border wall, for scrap metal. Have we lost our mind?
Yeah, so again, comments coming in. I wanted to play. So, Will, this is the first time when he admitted to having operational control. Then he admitted later he did not have operational control. So let's go to first. This is when we believe one of the first times Mayorkas misled, if you want to use the word lied, to Congress by 4.
So would you say, having been asked this over and over again, that the United States, the President of the United States, the Secretary of Homeland Security, and all of the hardworking men and women at the border have operational control or have a form of presence, that they are aware of what's going on in the border and that they're working to secure the border every single day?
As we define that term, Congresswoman, we do.
So the question is going to be, and I'm looking at this politically, it's an interesting report in Politico. They say Secretary Mayorkas is regarded by Republicans as the most likely and easiest target for impeachment because of his activities. But they worry that centrist Republicans are hesitant to embrace impeachment or even accept that Mayorkas lied to lawmakers during the congressional hearings. Now, that's a question of whether that's in the House of Representatives or in the United States Senate. Jordan, discuss it politically.
Well, I mean, the House obviously is much more conservative, but the majority is very slim. You can't lose a lot of Republicans. 5. I mean, impeachment just takes a majority. It doesn't take a supermajority to impeach. So it's different than being after the trial being found guilty or acquitted. That's a 2/3 number. So here, what we're looking at is, and we'll talk to Chip Roy about it.
He says right now, it's close, but the votes are not quite there yet.
I think that goes to, it's not that people like Mayorkas, even moderate Republicans, I think, again, who represent a lot of these states that are closer on the border. It's the political calculation. And folks, think about many times when you move forward these impeachments, they backfire. I think this has gotten to the level. I mean, this is not like we're trying to impeach a president. This is a cabinet secretary who is totally incapable and refuses not only to do their job, but to carry out the laws on the books of the United States. I can't think of anything more impeachable than that. You failed at your job and you don't follow the law. That not following the law and what mandates him to do, that's a high crime and misdemeanor.
It sure is. Let's take a phone call. Joe, you're on the air.
Thank you for taking my question.
Sure.
And I appreciate everything you guys do as always.
Thank you.
If Mayorkas could or would be impeached, who chooses his replacement, and could it lead to the imprisonment if he's found impeachable?
No, impeachment is not a crime. It's a removal from office, so you don't go to jail for being impeached. His replacement it's a part of the executive branch of government under Article 2. Thus, the president, that'd be President Biden, would pick his replacement. So it's not where Congress picks the replacement or the impeachment body picks the replacement. The replacement is picked by the president. That's what Article 2 says. The issue here is, do you just let it go that he's been so inept? And I think that we played earlier that sound about the wristbands and not understanding the cartels they do this for a particular reason is so outrageous that he didn't know that basic fact.
That's outrageous. I mean, he's not informed before a committee. He knows these committees are going to be hostile too. So get informed. Understand. I mean, you should have the basic understanding of how you're trying to, of what's going on in the cartel use and the problems with all these children. But we saw the play down even after the movie. Oh, human trafficking is not that big of a deal. Sex trafficking is not that big of a deal. I mean, it's just gotten absurd. I want to just read out these numbers for you, just briefly. We put together just kind of like the total encounters at the border. There were 183,000 encounters along the southern border in July. That's an increase from 144,000 in June. I mean, right there, you're talking over 250,000 people. That's almost 300,000 people. In July, the number of those entering illegally between ports of entry also increased from 99,000 encounters in June to more than 132,000 in July. They've acted, Dad, like this border crisis is no longer. You add these numbers up. This is the sound of a mid-level city. This is size like Nashville, Tennessee.
Well, I mean, but
coming across in a month.
But what's happening here is they're not doing anything. There's no preventative activity to stop this. They're not doing anything proactively. I mean, when you ask your son, we'll talk to Chip Roy about this. I mean, he's obviously a congressman from a border state, but goodness, every state's a border state these days. They're doing nothing proactively.
And welcome back to Sekulow. As you know, as we've announced today, the ACLJ Action, our 501c4, is supporting the move by members of Congress to move forward with impeaching Secretary Mayorkas because of his failures to secure the southern border, the disinformation campaign, the list goes on and on. And we wanted to bring in Congressman Chip Roy, who's also leading those efforts. He represents the 21st District of Texas, but he is a national leader when it comes to these issues. And Congressman, it's great to have you on and join us. Let me ask you just first about this. Your Republican colleagues who have been dealing with trying to ask Mayorkas questions, whether it is the horrors that come out of a porous southern border or the disinformation campaign, how tough has it been to convince fellow Republicans to take this action?
Well, great to be on. Look, I mean, I've been pretty clear for the last 2 years that I think that I think that the impeachment of Alejandro Mayorkas, that the case has been made. Right? I'm very clear in laying out the case that he has violated his oath to the Constitution, that he is failing to carry out his duty to faithfully execute the laws of the United States. He lied to us under oath. It's crystal clear. Unfortunately, a handful of my colleagues on House Judiciary and generally on the floor in the House have some concerns that it doesn't rise to the level of high crimes and misdemeanor. I disagree. They believe it's maladministration. I think this is well beyond maladministration, that this is a dereliction of duty. It is a breach of the public trust. And in fact, as I said, he has lied to us under oath. So he should be removed from office. If our guys can't find the fortitude to impeach him, then we ought to force his removal via the funding process.
Congressman, this is Jay Sekulow. You know, we filed litigation against the Department of Homeland Security to find out why they required the Customs and Border Patrol to remove a announcement that they had caught and apprehended two individuals on the Yemeni individuals on the terror watch list. And we got all the back and forth. Basically, they were saying, hey, DOJ doesn't like this. This is not, the kind of positioning we want. They didn't want the American people to know what's really going on down there. And then you take the drug cartel situation and the wristband question that Ted Cruz asked your colleague in the Senate, and Mayorkas has no idea. It almost seems like the illegal access to the United States is just not an item they care about.
Well, I think they view this as purely through a political lens and not through a human lens or through the lens of sovereignty, which they just don't even agree with. They gave up the joke a long time ago when they said they were in favor of a new, liberal world order. They don't believe in boundaries. They don't believe that our sovereignty matters. And they're all too happy to allow utter devastation for little girls getting sold to the sex trafficking trade, put in stash houses, being held for ransom, the kind of horrors we saw depicted in the movie The Sound of Freedom. They're all too happy to have migrants dying at large numbers along the Rio Grande and in South Texas, 856 last year alone, finding, ranchers, finding bodies on their ranches, finding them dead in the Rio Grande. The 53 human beings who were cooked in a tractor trailer in San Antonio in the Texas heat just over a year ago. Those are the kinds of things that my Democratic colleagues are perfectly content allowing to continue. It is a war on children, right? They don't care that children are dying. They don't care that children are getting abused and sold to the sex trafficking trade. And they're all too happy to perpetuate it for their political expediency. I do not believe that House Republicans should fund a Department of Homeland Security that is war with not just the people of Texas, but with the entire country and undermining the safety and security of our people dying from fentanyl poisonings and migrants who are seeking to come here.
Congressman Roy, one of the other issues that it's not, and again, every family who's been touched by the fentanyl crisis, I mean, I think that alone, to me, Secretary Mayorkas could be impeached over, because we know that there are drugs coming across that border that target and kill Americans, and we've heard the stories. I mean, it's hard to talk to anybody in the country. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor or middle class that hasn't been affected or had a family member killed because of fentanyl.
I've had 6 children who have died in the independent school district in which I reside, just southwest of Austin, Texas. It is affecting real lives. It is affecting moms who are having to start organizations trying to increase fentanyl awareness. The amount of fentanyl pouring into our communities is extraordinary. Travis County, Austin, Texas, last year had I can't remember the numbers right in front of me, but such an extraordinarily high level of deaths by fentanyl that it was off the charts relative to the country. Now it's affecting everybody, but we're getting pounded in Texas because all of this stuff that's pouring in is sticking, and it's sticking as it then flows through into the rest of the nation. That's my point, and why we did a letter with 14 of my Texas House colleagues joined me in saying, look, no security, no funding. And, the other side wants to say, oh, you want to shut down the government. Look, I'm not looking to shut down the government, but what I am looking to do is force them to do their job using the power of the purse. That's my job, and so we're going to keep our foot on the gas.
I want to play this sound because from you asking Mayorkas a question, this is back in April, Congressman Roy asking Mayorkas about operational control. Take a listen, bite 39.
Will you testify under oath right now? Do we have operational control, yes or no?
Yes, we do. And
we have operational control of the borders.
Yes, we do.
And then when he was asked a few months later, July 25th, at an oversight hearing, he totally walked it back. Congressman Roy, take a listen. This is again Mayorkas under oath, bite 41.
The Secure Fence Act, specifically the statute, defines operational control as not having one individual cross the border illegally. Under that statutory definition, no administration has achieved operational control.
I mean, Congressman Roy, when he told you he had operational control, he's just defining, I guess, what that means for himself?
So what I found fascinating is when we had him in front of the House Judiciary Committee in July, I posed these questions to him again and forced him again to say, well, you said this. And he kind of smirked and was saying, well, yeah, I said that. But then he tried to do the same thing and hide behind, quote, well, I wasn't referring to that specific statute with respect to the Secure Offense Act, which has the language that says any flow of narcotics or any flow of humans means you don't have operational control. And so I said, hold on there, Mr. Secretary. And I went back and I went to the transcripts and I brought the same charts that I had used 15 months earlier. And I held the charts up. I said, I literally held this chart up. And you said, yes, when I asked if we have operational control based on the definition I was holding up. He had no response to that. He tried to go hide and obfuscate. The fact is, he knows they've been trying to pull the wool over the eyes of the American people. Fortunately, because of some good reporting, like by Bill Malugin and by some of us pushing it, the American people know. But I'm tired of that, and Republicans have got to do our job to hold them accountable.
Congressman, what is it going to take for your colleagues, I'm talking about your Republican colleagues, to take action here, to see an impeachment of someone who is failing so drastically at protecting the United States and who has a narrative, and it's, of course, run by the administration, that just doesn't want to deal with the reality of what's going on here?
Honestly, I think it's going to take pressure. It's going to take pressure from the American people and pressure from some of us in Congress to turn up the heat. Our guys are just too fast to come up with excuses. I had a phone call yesterday with some of my colleagues. My staff was on a call with some other staff this morning, and it's all the usual stuff. But, Chip, we don't have the Senate. Chip, we passed H.R. 2 in the spring, but the Senate won't vote for it. Well, they won't vote for it because you people roll right over. You let them just run over you. Impeach the guy. He lied to you. Defund them until they change gears. That doesn't mean you shut down the Department of Homeland Security in perpetuity. It means you hold them accountable to do their job and don't give them $1 to continue to allow our children to die from fentanyl, to allow migrants to get abused. I mean, seriously, I can't, as a Christian, we talk about being a Christian nation. How can we let this happen? While you and I are talking, there's a little girl in a stash house here in America getting ready to get sold into the sex trafficking trade, being held for ransom. While we're talking right now, we have to end that.
Through ACLJ action, just since this morning, we've had over 10,000, now it's 10,694 individual letters that have been sent into Congress and your colleagues, Congressman Roy, letting them know. That's just today. We just launched it, letting them know to support this impeachment move. So, Congressman Roy, we appreciate you so much taking the time to join us today on the broadcast and leading this effort to hold the administration accountable. It's killing Americans, it's destroying cities, and it's time for Mayorkas to go. Thank you, Congressman Roy.
When you see the New York City, which has been an asylum-friendly state or a refugee-friendly state, San Francisco, saying we can't handle this, the number of people coming in is just so overwhelming. We can't do this. This is not something we can handle in the scope of our existing public services that we have available. We just can't do this. And you ask yourself this question. If that's New York and San Francisco, what's the rest of the country thinking? And by the way, in New York, it was 70%, Jordan. Yeah. 70% said we can't do this anymore. And it's affecting New York City drastically.
Yeah, I mean, they're running out of space to house people. I mean, they've had to kick people out of different homes to use. They're using apartment buildings. They're also having to use very expensive hotels. So it's costing the taxpayers in places like Manhattan a lot of money. This all traces back to the fact that we have a porous southern border. All these issues we're talking about right here. Right. We haven't even talked about the terrorism. The number of terrorists who have been caught trying to cross this border. We have a whole video,
I think it's been viewed by almost 80,000 people that talks about that very issue. I mean, it in dramatic terms. And we, by the way, found that out through our Freedom of Information Act litigation with the Department of Homeland Security when they pulled down that they had captured 2 people on the terror watch list, and the FBI and DOJ and State Department made them take it down, made the Customs and Border Patrol take down their success in capturing the terrorists. Why? Because they don't want the American people to know that terrorists are coming in through that southern border. It's that clear. And we were able to get that and get that information out. So when you're supporting the work of the ACLJ, you're letting us hold our government accountable. We're doing that with ACLJ action right now. We did it with ACLJ in federal court. Together, we can make a huge impact.